All righty, fellas, what's going on? Today we're tackling a Dynasty Superflex mock draft with rookies. And for those of you guys that are just kind of filing in here, the link is up at the top of the chat. If you want to get in the draft, there's, 6 spots still available. And like I said, we're doing a Dynasty Superflex startup with rookies. Quick announcement here as well. We do have buy, sell, hold reports officially live.
Yes,
so for those of you guys that are looking to get some trade advice for your teams this time of year, we can get you that either by, you can purchase them on the site, Flock Fantasy, or you can actually get one for free when you sign up for an annual subscription as well. The site link there is listed. Like I said, we're just going to wait a few minutes until the draft fills up, and then we'll get it going. Looks like we only have a couple more spots left.
Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, I'm sure you saw this about an hour ago, but did you hear that apparently Packers news went to Josh Jacobs saying, what do you think this team needs? And he said, I'm going to keep it honest. We need a true number one wide receiver. We got a couple guys, but we got no real number one. And it's we were hoping obviously Jaden Reed would develop into that guy. But I mean, if you're telling me he's just the hyper efficient to a true alpha number one wide receiver, I think that's honestly probably best in terms of the utility we can expect, right? Because I mean, for whatever reason, the Packers just didn't even deploy him as a true number one in terms of his routes. He was still running 75% of the routes on most occasions.
Yeah, I wonder if the Packers would be in the market to trade for Garrett Wilson or
a number one X for sure.
Yeah, I think it makes, given where they're picking in the draft too, it probably makes the most sense to go with a veteran. And also, I believe that's what Jacob said as well, is that they need a veteran or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
One more spot. Speaking of Packers, pack it up. Just files in here. I think Garrett Wilson to the Packers would make a whole lot of sense for sure.
For sure.
Snakehead said, I just signed up for Flock Fantasy using a different creator's code. Can I switch my code to FSC to get y'all's benefits, or do I have to create a new account? So if you signed up for an annual, for example, you would, I think, have to ask for a refund in the site issues tab, and then they would refund you, and then you could sign back up with our code again. But yes, you cannot just switch after you've signed up already, just because the way that we funnel,
protections
site, it's whoever's code you use is who gets the money, basically.
In an ideal world, that would obviously be optimal, but it's more so from a protection of the creator standpoint as well. So it makes sense, but at the same time, I'm sure if you reach out to site issues, said, hey, I meant to use code FSC, my apologies, and you just bring that up to them, they should be able to get you sorted.
As long as you, for one thing I should mention, as long as you haven't used any benefits, if you signed up for domains code and got a blueprint already, you wouldn't be able to get a refund, I don't think. So
exactly.
If you just did this or whatever, I've been using Mason's code for 2 years now, wanted to switch to y'all, but I'll just create a new account. I mean, that would obviously, you definitely don't have to do that, but that's obviously a lot of support you're showing for the site. So definitely love that.
For sure.
Okay, looks like we are full here, by the way. And for those of you guys just joining in, rookies are in the Sleeper UI, and we're going to do rookies in here. So you got to scroll down. You got to search for their name. They're not going to show up in ADP or whatever. But if you want to find Ashton Genty, you got to search for his name, and we'll see kind of what the rookie values look like. We're not going to be doing any, we're not going off of a mock draft or anything. So we don't have landing spots.
Pop that 3RR on. We didn't do it last time.
We did do it last time, actually.
Did we?
Yeah, it was on the preset.
Oh, my bad then.
We 3RR is something we just rotate every draft because we disagree on the functionality of 3RR. But anyways, I'm going to randomize the draft order here, and then we will get going. Again, we're going to just do, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback, half tight end premium, super flex league, couple of bench spots as well. If we get through this fast enough, maybe we'll run a rookie draft at the end, a 4-round rookie draft, just to see kind of some values initially with the Sleeper UI now having the rookies in here. So give a randomize here. And
I got the 102 this time.
102, and I'm picking in the middle of the draft here at the 106, which is actually one of my most, I feel great about picking this area of drafts right now in startups.
For sure. I got the fucking sound on.
Yeah, get that sound off.
I am at the 102, and I do think at this point of the offseason, it is a fair discussion to kind of talk about strategy at the 102, because I think obviously for most people and for myself as well, the main target at this pick, assuming that Josh Allen goes 101, would be Lamar Jackson. But I do think with what we saw in the NFL playoffs, with the youth factor, with them potentially adding another wide receiver, if somebody said, hey, listen, Jaden Daniels is my 102 in Dynasty, I don't think that's outlandish, because, again, did I have my own qualms with him about him as a prospect? Absolutely. But at the same time, I would just be a hater if I didn't acknowledge the fact that he had a great rookie season. He literally led a 6-seed Commanders team who people didn't have the expectations we're going to make the playoffs. He led them to the NFC Championship. So if somebody wanted to take Jaden Daniels here, obviously we do know what he's able to do from a fantasy perspective as well. I think that'd be a fine pick. I will go with Lamar Jackson, 3-time MVP after this offseason. But as we do see here from Starboy Jake, I do think at this point, this is probably the top 3 tier in Dynasty at quarterback.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And Brock mentions I've been fiending for the rookie breakdown videos. I'll talk to you, Danny, maybe after we're done streaming here, but I got a couple ideas for rookie stuff that we want to start introducing. I believe by next week, late this week, we should have the prospects tab of the Flock Fantasy site, including rookies in 2025, the wide receiver and the running back class. First initial run through the prospect model. Obviously, we don't have official heights and weights yet for a lot of these guys. We don't have draft capital for them. We don't have combine numbers for them. We don't have our film grades in there yet. But that will be coming at some point later in the offseason. But I'm probably going to do a video at some point, either early next week, most likely, about the running back and wide receiver prospect model, the first run through. And maybe you and I can do a video, breaking down our top 10 running backs or whatever. I'm about midway through the wide receiver class right now. We've done a number of pretty much all the running backs that are really, really relevant. So we're getting ready to start talking about this class now.
Yeah, for sure. And again, also on the site, we were talking about doing the breakdowns. We've actually messaged a couple of the creators on the site if they ever wanted to do a collab on one of those. We can figure out the semantics of it. Again, it has been a little bit more of a slower week for me. It's been, I'm not going to say exactly what, but it's been a pretty personal week. So, I've just kind of fallen behind on that regard. But once I get back to watching, once I am able to fully get back into the flow of everything, I will.
Yeah. And I have an idea for maybe a stashes video, really, really low end, cheap guys that you can take late in startups. I feel like that's a good topic to cover this time of year with people, people who started sicko startups as soon as the off season started are probably starting to get into the 12th, 15th, 18th round of drafts. And they're always wondering kind of who do I pick in this area? Yeah. What about this player who's my tight end 4 on my roster? Is he worth anything? I feel like holds or guys that you can stash for later on is a good topic that I might talk about at some point as well. 10, 15 guys that you can stash at the end of your bench kind of thing.
For sure. I do see this, so I do want to point it. Sold 103 and 108 to get the 101. My team's already a monster. And while I could get Hampton, I went up to get Genty. Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely comfortable making this type of deal because as we know with Genty, he's going to be in contention to be the RB1 in Dynasty right off the bat. And if you're telling me, as much as I love Amari and Hampton, if you're telling me the cost is him plus the 108 to go up and get Bijan, Gibbs, that tier running back, which is exactly where Genty will be, I think that's perfectly fine to be able to pay because, 108, I like this class a lot. You can get an Egbuka or you can get maybe a Luther Bird and you can get maybe, one of those wide receivers or the RB4 or so off the class. But at the same time, at the end of the day, what we learn from Dynasty is the needle moving assets are what win you championships. Yeah, and of course, you could theoretically lose that trade because Hampton becomes just as good as Genty in the NFL, and 108 they netted Emeka Egbuka, and he's a top 15 Dynasty receiver after his rookie season. And in hindsight, you lose that trade, but you got the best asset in the deal. There was also the possibility one of those guys missed, so on and so forth. Yeah, 100%. So let me just see. We had a couple. Yeah. What is the nightmare but realistic landing spot for each position? Okay, let's go through it. Sort by rookies only. Both of us don't pick till a little bit, so we can look at this. He's talking about landing spot. Yeah. No, I know. Ashton Genty's worst possible landing spot out of the realistic teams that can take him. If we go through the draft order. Yeah, I think he's talking specifically the Falcons taking a quarterback, not necessarily specifically the prospect fit. What? No. How the Falcons took Penix last year is what he's talking about. Who's the quarterback team that we're not thinking of that would be a nightmare for whatever quarterback goes there? Who's the running back team that we're not thinking of that would be the Charbonnet landing spot for? Well, that's what That's literally what I'm pointing out. I'm just saying realistic to draft capital. Let's take a look at it. Number 4 overall. Let's just say the top 3 players on the Patriots board. Obviously, they're not going to take a quarterback. 2 of them go off the board. It's Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter go in the top 3. Is it at all outrageous? If it's outrageous, but would you? It would also be a shock. But hear me out. Could you see the Patriots in a bizarro world taking Ashton Genty at 4? I actually think that the Jags would be a worse landing spot. I can see the Jags doing it too. I think Raiders would be a great one.
under contract, talented players. That would be a mess year one, I think. Yeah, I don't think that would be that bad because I think Kamara's on his way out at some point. He would probably have a bit of a slow start from a redraft standpoint, but I don't think he would be in too much of an issue. With Genty, I actually just think given the draft capital he's going to get, I don't really see a huge issue with any of the places he could go to.
It's actually my favorite Genty spot, by the way. It's actually my favorite Genty spot. I think the reason why the Broncos have a horrible run game is that they have horrible running backs. I'll keep it a stack. Their offensive line is actually really good.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with their offensive line. Like Javonte Williams, if he was 2021, Javonte Williams would have been an RB1 this year.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, I'm on the clock here. Brian Thomas just went off the board. Best available like wide receiver for me would be like Marvin Harrison, kind of Drake London types. Quarterback wise, I could go with like a Kyler Murray. I could go with a Caleb Williams, somebody like that. Running back, I mean, Genty, Barkley, Bijan, Gibbs, all off the board. I wouldn't take Barkley quite this high anyways. Ooh, this is close, man. I'm just gonna go with Bowers. I feel like Bowers is just easily
he's available
player there.
Good pick. It's Sleeper definitely has to reorder their thing because there's a lot of names on the board that could potentially have gone earlier. Holy fuck, Saquon Barkley at 204?
Yeah, I know. That's what I said.
Oh, I just clocked that in. My fault.
Yeah, I mean, J problem. I don't think this is a terrible strategy, especially if you notice everybody in your startup kind of going really.
It's just Barkley
rebuilding and whatnot. You got the two best running backs in all of fantasy basically next year.
May was available.
Yeah, I know May was available.
Oh, you passed on May?
Yeah, I mean, I already took Hurts with one of my picks. I like the quarterback depth. It's a close conversation between Bowers and May. Half tight end premium. I think May versus Bowers is a conversation. You're a little bit higher on May than I am. I have May towards the end of the first round.
Like, I'd be comfortable taking May in the mid first.
Well, I mean, everyone knows that now. We've done like 4 mock drafts, and you've taken May at like 106 in all of them.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm between 2 players right now.
To answer my take on Andrew's question too, just like positionally, what's the worst landing spot for a quarterback to go to? To me, the answer to that is probably Cleveland. Just because I think Cleveland just is a bad franchise that doesn't know how to fucking get They literally got Deshaun Watson, who was an elite quarterback, and turned him into a bum.
Respectfully, I think that's far more of Deshaun Watson's doing than I think it's the Browns doing.
Well, most quarterback landing spots, obviously, if there's a Penix situation, that's totally different. But most quarterback teams only draft quarterbacks if they're going to start right away. You know what I mean? Like, you don't usually get quarterback teams do the Penix thing where like the guy's not going to start for a while.
Sir, I'm trying to think who I'm going to go with here.
Yeah.
I mean,
I do think a nightmare landing spot for a running back could also be the 49ers as well. I think it's possible.
That would not be a nightmare for what it's worth, because if they're taking a running back relatively early, that's probably a negative on Christian McCaffrey status.
It is. But like, what if Genty went to the 49ers at 11?
I mean, that would, again, that you're paired with Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, it would be great long term, but in the short term, I think it would affect Genty's value a little bit. The way that, like, you know, when Lamb was drafted to the Cowboys, people were kind of concerned about it.
For sure.
I think some of the other places too, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't totally shock me.
Where exactly? To the Jets would be atrocious. I agree.
Yeah, Jets would be terrible.
Yeah, for sure. Peyton wants to establish it. Don't you think there's respectfully though? Somebody mentioned too many running backs take a work away from Genty. If they're taking Genty in the first round, that just shows their belief in those running backs.
Yeah. That's why I answered the question more from Andrew's perspective here. Like, I'm not really talking about Genty. I'm talking about a running back landing spot who could take a running back high that would sink Judkins or sink Henderson. I think wherever Genty goes, he's going to be the lead back because he's going to get drafted high enough that dictates that. I'm talking like an early second round pick running back team that doesn't really need a running back kind of thing.
You want to hear something gross?
What?
Let's pull the tea leaves here. The Raiders just hired Pete Carroll. They got Chip Kelly. You know who Chip Kelly coached for last year, right?
Yeah.
Where was he?
I think either of those guys going there would be pretty good.
No, they already did. They already confirmed. I'm saying, like, do you know where Chip Kelly coached this past year, right?
Ohio State.
You know who their number one receiver is, right?
Oh, Jeremiah Smith.
You know who his cousin is, right?
No, I don't actually.
Who played for Pete Carroll for 1 year? Geno Smith.
Oh, really? I didn't actually know that.
Dude, this has been connected before. Connecting the tea leaves. Imagine the Raiders made a move for Geno Smith. They took Ashton Genty at number 6 overall. And then the Seahawks are now we're in the quarterback market at 18, and they took a Shedeur Cam Ward. Or I mean, it would be so Seahawks if they took Jalen Milroe.
That would be a wild. It's going to be Sam Howell season if that happens. I'll be insufferable if that happens.
If you get a Sam Howell season, I fear that'll be crazy.
I'm caught between a couple guys here. I kind of like the QB value, but I also think that Wilson's kind of a tier break at wide receiver. So I'm going to grab Wilson there.
Yeah, I agree. Mid row. 212. What the fuck? I was considering Tet McMillan if he had fallen back to the 3-2. So I think
I wouldn't take McMillan over Garrett Wilson or AJ Brown. But I think he becomes a conversation when you're talking about re-rolling Odunze into McMillan. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's when you're like, yeah, I think I'd probably rather have McMillan.
I mean, obviously, I do think McMillan versus Marv was going to be a combo. I would still take Marv, but like, this is the range where he should be going for sure.
Yeah. I feel like Tet has a chance to go to a nightmare landing spot, though. Like, I feel like he could be one of the prospects that goes to like a suboptimal landing spot. And to me, that landing spot is New Orleans.
Yeah, I could see it. Howell still go to Bieniemy ruined his confidence. I just don't agree.
Howell's not goated. Let's be perfectly clear here. But I do think Howell is fun enough that if you were the Seahawks and you traded Geno Smith and you got a good return and you were just like, this class sucks, I don't want to draft a Shedeur Sanders, like, or whatever. They're not even available to their pick. They don't want to draft Jalen mid-row in the first round or whatever. And they're like, let's just fucking roll with Howell for a year. I think it would be fine.
Yeah. This is a wolf or a cat?
I think that's a cat. Howell.
Howell. Oh, Howell.
Bryce Young would cook with Tet. I actually think people would really think that that's not a good landing spot for Tet, but I would love him in Carolina, dude.
He'd be great there for show. For show.
I don't think people, I don't know. What is your initial take, chat, on Tet McMillan to the Panthers? Are you excited about that landing spot? Or are you not excited about that landing spot? I think on the surface, people are like, the Panthers kind of suck. But Bryce played really well. Dave Canales worked with Mike Evans. Like, it's a good fit for McMillan.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sorry, I also got to point out, Nico Collins 210, great fucking value. That's fantastic. B, I've mentioned this before, but I really do feel like by the end of the startup offseason, Caleb Williams is going to be at minimum top 15 startup pick. So I'll take him at the 211 for sure. And C, I mean, outside of that, like, looks like the valuations are starting to materialize themselves. And I do like the variance that we see with the quarterback builds comparatively to what we've seen in years past for sure.
Oh, absolutely. That's why, like, I think I could have made the argument that in years past where I took Bowers, I should have taken May or Caleb Williams just to get a second quarterback, or where I took Wilson, I should have taken Bo Nix or,
but like when you can get fourth or fifth round Dak / Mayfield,
whoever.
You get round 4 or 5 Dak or Mayfield at this point, that feels like a fucking gift.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably likely that one of those guys are going to fall. I think McBride at the 311 is a great value as well, given the half tight end premium in this draft, which is listed, by the way, at the top of the screen. You guys can see what the like full rules are. And
even Trevor Lawrence is still available. Dak, fucking even Purdy, like Mayfield, like.
I think I'm gonna punch it to round 5, to be honest, because all of you guys have a million quarterbacks at the turn.
Yeah. Also, damn, I was hoping Devon Achane slipped through. He wasn't going to. I picked the.
No, he wasn't going to. So, have we only had Tet and Genty go of the rookies?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So Genty went at the 205, which I think is about equivalent value to where he should be going. McMillan 212 is a little early for me. I think he should probably be more like a mid-third guy, given that Wilson went behind him and Harrison went behind him and some of the QBs went behind him. But I do think that's probably reasonably his high end. Like, someone might take him at the 2-3 turn.
Maybe it depends on where he goes, but like, if you're asking me right now, I would take the reroll on Tet versus Garrett Wilson in Dynasty.
I would not, but Wilson is the cutoff for me. Like, he's the last receiver I would take over McMillan.
For what it's worth, I think you could even argue like Ladd. Like, dude, that's a real conversation with the way Ladd played this year. On top of if we do potentially see more pace, maybe they add a. People are thinking, oh, if they add a wide receiver, like that's terrible to Ladd. No, I do think if you add like a big bodied X wide receiver, that increases the overall volume, increases the overall pace of that Chargers offense. It's actually more beneficial because we want the offense to be good, and that receiver isn't getting brought in to take targets away from Ladd.
Yeah, well, I have Ladd over Wilson, so
yeah. Okay, so
I would have. Sure. Okay. I mean, I actually probably should have drafted him over Wilson. Now that I think about it, but I just the ADP's all fucked up here, so I got a little confused.
Let me see where I have
Irving there at the 4-6 makes sense.
I have Ladd at 10, and I have Garrett Wilson at 14. The one other receivers, I have AJ Brown over Wilson, and I have JSN over Wilson.
Yeah, that makes sense. Lawrence, Purdy, Tagovailoa, McCarthy, Bryce Young, and Baker Mayfield are still on the board. I'm not taking a quarterback yet. Wide receiver wise, I believe who's my highest rated wide receiver here? I think Olave is my highest rated wide receiver at the moment.
By the way. Yeah,
running back. I don't think there's anybody really worth a damn. If I was going to take a running back here, I would take Judkins, actually. I wouldn't take a veteran running back because Judkins currently is my RB2 in the class. I'm going to go with Olave there. I think he made sense to help build out my wide receiver core. Hopefully I can fill out my running back core with rookies.
So a couple guys I really like, I mean, there's one in particular that maybe I'm higher on than consensus, but I mean, we'll see where Fleck goes. I'm not really going to put anything out in the open right now.
I'm curious where the 103 goes. Like we've only had McMillan and Jensen go off the board.
Fleck, you're such a rat. You're such a rat. There's no way you actually snipe me on Rome.
Snakehead said, are y'all doing any listener leagues this year? And Snakehead, actually, since you were the one who asked about switching to our code, yes, we will be. Probably in like March or so, we'll probably do one, maybe April. And we will have that available to Flock Fantasy site subscribers. If you're an annual Mother Flocker, you get 2 entries. If you're a Flocker, you get 1 entry. That's usually what we end up doing every year. So yeah, we will have some more startups coming. We'll probably do 2 more, I would imagine, this year.
Yeah.
Maybe one in like March, April, another one in like June, something like that.
I'm trying to think who
Caleb Johnson, the 103.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you're a little bit higher on Caleb than I am. I definitely would not take him over some of the running backs and also some of the receivers. But I like him. I just think he's more of like a 106 to 109 guy.
I mean, like, I'm cool with him in the mid-first valuation. It's just more so 409 for me is a little early. Like, I think if it was like a 5th, 6th round valuation, I'd get more reasonable. But, I mean, there's specifically another rookie running back I still have rated higher than him. And on top of that, I mean, some of these wide receivers that are still on the board are really nice. Like, even when you're just not looking at the wide receivers that are rookies.
Yeah, Rice going 1 pick ahead of you. I think Rice, I would definitely take over Caleb Johnson personally.
The one I was really hoping made it back was a Dunze, to be honest. Like I've cited this to you as well. I really do think a Dunze is primed to have a huge second year. So the fact that he's going at the 408, like people might think, oh, 408 feels early. Like, dude, if he has a breakout year attached to Caleb going forward, he's going to be a top 10 overall dynasty wide receiver.
I don't disagree with you, but I also think that I'm valuing the worst range of outcome that he kind of has like a little bit more of like a slower burn this year. And he doesn't just like smash from week 1 to 17. I feel good about Odunze still, but I think 408 is fair. I'm not going to say it's overvalued or undervalued. I think that's probably where he should go.
And then I do go with my Marion Hampton. The reason being, I was kind of stuck at wide receiver. There's a couple guys that I think are relatively similar tier, including Igbuka, including Luther Burden, Xavier Worthy, guys like that. So it was a really close call for me. So instead of having to make that decision before the turn, I get my guy who I thought was the clear-cut next best running back available. Yes, he will be, assuming he gets a good landing spot with potential volume, ahead of a guy like Jonathan Taylor for me in my ranking. So 411 for Marion Hampton. Again, you got the size, you got the speed, you got the movement ability. I do think he has a 3-down level upside at the next level, and he's going to go in a honey spot in this NFL draft where he should get that opportunity right away. So I will just I'll just take my next rated rookie, and that's actually going to be Luther Burden. We actually talked about Luther Burden this morning. We actually both finished our film evaluations on him, and I'm a little bit more believing in the potential upside there. We both agree that given how he was utilized in that Missouri offense, it was a big headache, but it's just really depending on your contextual belief on if he can hit that ceiling, because the movement is too good for him. For me,
I wanted to just be all in on Burden. I really did.
Future
He was my
Cowboy.
wide receiver one
cool
entering the year. He was my wide receiver one in the class over Tet McMillan. But everything that Burden needed to do in 2024 to take himself from very good sophomore year to like a Malik Neighbors level prospect, which was in the range of outcomes for him if he had a great junior season. He not only did he not answer the questions that I had for him going into this year, he actually created more questions, in my opinion. So
I don't disagree, especially from a production standpoint. However, the first thing I noticed when I put on the Luther Burden tape was, why the fuck is he being used like this? Because half of the fucking routes he was running were literally clear routes.
They were, but
it's frustrating.
He's frustrating. I watched 4 games of him in 2023 and 4 games of him in 2024, just looking for routes that were not smoke screens, tunnel screens, drag routes, screen routes, or slot fades, because that's all he ran the entire time at Mizzou. I could not find a single, in-breaking dig route or something. Like he just was not asked to do anything remotely resembling an NFL route tree.
The only routes he ran were digs in the games that I watched. Like when he was running real routes. Correction, I agree with you in the gimmick stuff, the screen stuff, the drag stuff, a lot of little comeback routes. Like he loved that type of stuff. But I do genuinely believe when he was tasked to work down the field, working across the middle of the field, working on dig routes, working on post routes, working on corner routes.
That sounds great, but to me, you just described 5 routes in his entire career.
I don't disagree, but I'm saying that's more so the utilization of what he was doing in that Mizzou offense. That's why I think he's the contextual wide receiver of this class, because you can't get the bottom line on Luther Burden just from watching the production he has on the film. You have to contextualize, hey, what the fuck is he actually being asked to do? And is that the optimal way for his usage? And my answer was a resounding no when I was watching that Missouri offense.
If Matthew Golden and Luther Burden ran at each other full speed, they'd be the perfect wide receiver prospect, because they did the exact opposite shit.
It's insane
in college.
Yeah, it's insane. Like I do think Luther Burden's going to be very landing spot dependent. I'll tell you right now, if he landed at the Cowboys at 12 and he could be the number 2 to Lamb and they could be creative with how they use him, dude, I think he could be a 1,000-yard receiver year one. It really depends where he lands.
He's uber talented. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I am scared like hell that he's Treylon Burks all over again.
See, I didn't get that vibe from his movement. I thought he was far more fluid than even Treylon was.
I think you're discrediting how good Treylon's movement ability was.
I loved Burks.
Arkansas.
I loved Burks. But at the same time, our archetype, from an archetype standpoint, they are different players, because Luther Burden is your smoother moving 5'11", 195-pound wide receiver.
He's 208, dude. He's a bigger dude than that.
Okay, fair. 200, 205, whatever he's actually going to end up weighing at, because if he was listed at 208, he'll probably weigh in at about 204, 205, give or take. So, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. I do agree that he is more landing spot dependent, like a Burks was, which may dissuade people off of him. But if you get that landing spot for Luther Burden, like, I think he's got legitimate top 10 in the NFL type of upside.
Oh, I don't disagree at all.
Archetype is the style of wide receiver you are. So, for example, Nico Collins is your big-bodied X archetype wide receiver. Amon St. Brown is your power slot archetype. Basically, they're both productive wide receivers, but they win in different ways. Nico Collins being that big, physical, boundary wide receiver. Amon being more of that manufactured slot, middle-of-the-field wide receiver. So, it's not a negative when we say archetype. It's more so just painting the picture for, if they do hit, what exactly will that look like at the next level? So, for example, a guy like Emeka Egbuka, if he hits, it's going to look similar to the,
when he hits, he's not going to miss.
I don't disagree for what it's worth, but comparison, like the way Ladd McConkey won this year, if Egbuka could shed the concerns that some people may have, which I think are overblown for what it's worth, that, he's a slot wide receiver, can he play full snaps on the outside? That is exactly what people said about Ladd McConkey, when people forget that Ladd McConkey was a 4.39 wide receiver that, for the most part, won the majority of his routes on the outside when he was tasked to. So, again, this isn't to make it an Egbuka or a Ladd McConkey discussion, because obviously we're talking about just archetypes in general. But at the same time, people try to just pigeonhole you. When we say archetype, it's more so, what are you good at now? And if you do expand your skill set, what would that look like?
Yeah, I'm
more of a pattern or the model of the play. Exactly. It's just like outlining what they do well and how they'll be used in an NFL context at the next level.
Yeah. Like, for example, I'll just go through my top 5 receivers and what archetype they are. Tet McMillan is precisely the same archetype that Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, and Mike Evans are. Drake London, like X wide receivers. Number 2 wide receiver in this class is Travis Hunter, assuming he plays wide receiver. He is more your separator, Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs type of guy. If he develops in the next level and plays wide receiver, that's what he would be. Then you have my wide receiver 3 right now is Emeka Egbuka. He's your power slot, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore type of archetype there. Then wide receiver 4 for me is Matthew Golden from Texas. He is your prototype separator, Calvin Ridley, Devontae Smith, Jordan Addison, Chris Olave, guys like that. And then my number 5 receiver in this class on film is Burden, who is there's a lot less guys like Burden in the NFL. That's what partially makes me scared off of him a little bit. The only guys really that have hit in the NFL that are like Burden play for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, you could make the argument that there's other guys around the league that are kind of like Burden.
Yeah.
But there's also, for every Luther Burden turning into Deebo Samuel take.
I think this is my favorite comp that I've seen, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, you could use him like Rashee Rice. I don't think they play like all that similarly.
I do though, because I think from a hands perspective, from a physicality perspective, from a yards after catch perspective, like you put Luther Burden again. Obviously, Rashee Rice, like the main concern we had for him was his route diet and his separation ability at the college level. And I think Burden is leaps and bounds the separator than what Rashee Rice was coming out. Actually, we were both lower on Rashee Rice. But what I'm pointing out is if you get Burden's skill set with the right offensive coach, he can be a 140 target wide receiver at the next level.
Don't disagree, but I think there's maybe 5 OCs in the league that will use him, right?
I think it expands longer than that. Like for one, like I don't think Brian Schottenheimer is the greatest offensive schemer, but I'd
be worried about how he's used. To be honest,
I wouldn't.
I love the landing spot with the quarterback play and the fact that Lamb's the number 1, but I'd actually be.
But JT was available.
How Burden is used,
dude. I just assumed at the 6'11" JT would be gone. That I scrolled down the Chase Brown.
Yeah, no, I definitely would not have taken.
I didn't see JT was available.
Bro. So this might be a hot take though, but I would have still taken Judkins over Jonathan Taylor.
I mean, I'm not there, but like I took
Judkins is my RB2 in the class. Man. I can't quit this dude. I also watched like 7 or 8 games on him to make sure I wasn't too high on the guy. And I'm just like, this dude is a freak show, man. He runs so physical. He's such a good athlete. Great first step. I think people are overblowing concerns about Quinshon based on how he was used this year. It's like he was asked to do one role because Henderson did the other role.
I took Amari and Hampton very early, so
yeah. I personally think that all of these running backs are going to be landing spot dependent. What offense did they go to? How good is their offensive line? How good is their, whatever. If you get all of these running backs, let's say in an optimal landing spot, or maybe they're all in a median landing spot, I think Judkins will be a significantly better pro.
Listen, I'm taking the value because this is like I have 2 quarterbacks. I wouldn't do this in a real draft. I would trade down, but Shadur Sanders is going to go in the top 5 of the NFL draft, and he's at the 7-2. Like
there's absolutely zero chance in hell I would draft Shadur Sanders over Tua Tagovailoa in a startup.
Both were available.
Yeah, both were available. I would have. There's absolutely.
I was on rookies only.
Shadur over Tua.
I was on rookies only, but regardless, that's more so me being in disbelief that Shadur and Tua, for that matter, are still available at the spot.
Yeah.
So again, we haven't formally graded the quarterbacks, but from a perspective that he's going to be a top 5 to 10 NFL draft pick and he's available in the 7th round of a startup, I just think that's too low.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a fair take. I personally am not super high on Shadur, and I
don't disagree.
My league mates draft him because I'll be taking a lot of veteran quarterbacks ahead of him.
I don't disagree. I just made it a point of emphasis that I think from a process standpoint, if you're at the 7-2 and a top 5 overall picks available, you kind of have to take them.
Yeah. Again, we have the top 5 backs off the board. We do, right?
Yeah.
Hampton, Genty, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, and Henderson are all off the board.
Yep. Matthew, obviously this is very early. So if, Shadur did fall out of the top 20, I wouldn't be taking him here. But from a wide belief in the NFL circles that now he's going to be a top 10, top 5 overall pick. So this is with the assumption that he is there. Obviously, maybe that's unfair because maybe some in this room would assume, okay, maybe he falls. That's why they're not valuing him there. But at the same time, me taking him at the 7-2 with the assumption is that he slipped and he went in the top 5 to 10 of the NFL draft, but he slipped in this room. It's kind of where I'm at with it.
Are the top 5 receivers off the board?
Yeah.
Burden, Igbuka, Golden's on the board, isn't it?
Warren would have been the pick that I made if I didn't know Shadur Sanders was still on the board, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I have Bowers, but Warren is also very enticing for me at this point. If I didn't have Bowers, I would 100% probably take Warren right here.
Honestly, that was the main reason why I took Shadur, because I looked at Tyler Warren. I was there in the search term. I'm like, wait, Tyler Warren in the 7th, that feels like good value in a 0.5 premium. And then when I went to the quarterbacks, I saw that Shadur was still available. So the fact that Tua is also still available right now is kind of insane.
I'm gonna do it.
Taking Tua?
Travis
Hunter.
He's too good. He's simply too good. I
don't disagree.
Travis Hunter, first of all, there's optimism in my opinion right now that he's going to play wide receiver because NFL scouts like Brugler and Daniel Jeremiah have him graded as a wide receiver. Now, I don't know if that's just their opinion. They think he's a better wide receiver than a cornerback. But if he plays wide receiver, the 103 or the 102 just got a lot more valuable.
100%. Okay, so let's contextualize this right now. Right? Travis Hunter. This is the only eval I'll give you guys like the full on scoop right now. So don't keep asking. Don't be like, okay, what about this guy? What about that? I'll say this on Travis Hunter. Even before Corey got to the eval, I just said, wait until you watch Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, the way I describe him is like if you took Garrett Wilson and Malik Neighbors and you crash course them. That's what he reminded me of when I watched him. And the first thing I said to Corey, he mentioned a different name. I mentioned.
Well, yeah, what was the first name I said to you?
The first thing you said was Justin Jefferson. The first thing I said after I said my official comp, I said, there is nothing stopping this guy. If he were to keep developing, there's nothing stopping this guy from being the next Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah. Hunter's that good, man. And if you're wondering like, oh, what the hell? How is he that good? And for what it's worth,
he moves differently, dude. Like that's the best.
For what it's worth, he kind of actually has a little bit of the Burden-ism a little bit where he used on Mickey Mouse routes and scramble drill, but it's totally forgivable for Hunter because he didn't play wide receiver full time.
Well, that's the thing. It's like that's why I can't get over Luther Burden because I do see similarities with them. But like Travis Hunter, even despite playing part-time wide receiver, is just like a more refined Burden.
Dude, he's 6'1". And he has a 65%.
See, I completely disagree with this. I think he's the wide receiver 1 in the class.
I prefer McMillan very, very slightly, but he is definitely the wide receiver 2 in the class.
Hunter had a higher grade for me than Malik Neighbors did last year.
Like, let me contextualize really quick. For a guy who played wide receiver part-time for 2 years and then finally played full-time wide receiver in college while playing corner as well, his prospect model comps are JSN, Garrett Wilson, and Justin Jefferson. For a guy that ran 40% of the routes his first 2 years of playing wide receiver.
Also, point this out.
So a lot of these are career numbers. So him only playing wide receiver this year, really out of like a 80% clip or whatever, 85% of the routes, would hurt him big time. Because he didn't play wide receiver that much. Like his breakout age took a hit as a result, for example. He didn't reach a dominator of, 30% until this year because he wasn't playing wide receiver enough. Same goes for like other metrics. He's also a little bit undersized. Like, he's only 185 pounds. Like, this dude's efficiencies are ridiculous. His draft capital is going to be extremely high. 6'1", 185-pound wide receivers do not post a 63% contested catch rate over their career. That is an absurd number for an undersized receiver.
He's insane at locating the ball in the air.
He has the best ball skills of any receiver in this class, which is insane because he plays DB also, which is notoriously a position that has bad ball skills.
I think he has some of the best ball skills I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even
That's the part that reminds me of Jefferson is the ball skills.
Well, so when I pointed out, so I actually had a higher route running grade than you. And I think it's valid why you had it lower because of the routes he was tasked with. But similar to Burden, the reason why I gave both of them the benefit of the doubt of their route running is that what they were asked to run you see the glimpses, you see the flashes of the fluidity and the attention to detail on their breaks that makes me think that there's so much more left untapped with how they were utilized. Like, no, obviously for Hunter's perspective, he kind of had to be used like that, because if you're playing full-time corner, you're not going to go out there and route everybody up on a consistent down-to-down basis, because you simply don't have the energy to do that. So I understand it. But at the same time, knowing the context that there's even more left to attain makes me so high on guys like Burden and Hunter. Because like you said, once you got guys that just move differently, once you get them in the context of your offense and you get them doing the stuff that you want for your specific scheme, they're going to be able to blossom more at the next level. Because for me personally, like I said, for Hunter's case, because of the double usage, for Burden's case is because I genuinely believe Drinkwitz just didn't know how to coordinate an offense around his best wide receiver. But regardless, the talent is... There's a reason why they were both number one prospects at their positions coming out.
They're also barely legally able to drink alcohol
or recruits
as well. Like, they're both really young players as well. Yeah, trust me. I like Burden. If you put him in an ideal landing spot, I'll be all over him. I worry that he's going to be really, really landing spot dependent, and he could be Treylon Burks 2.0 if he goes to the wrong landing spot. And the reason I feel so strongly about Matthew Golden, I'll give you guys the quick breakdown, because to me, the 8.7 is absurdly good value for him. First of all, I'm starting to get a lot higher on the tier 2 wide receivers in this class than the public seems to be on, because I think like Golden, Burden, Egbuka, I haven't watched Harris or Higgins or any of those guys yet, but I do think I upgraded Io Manor yesterday. I think he's got some, tangible traits as well. Matthew Golden, you have to watch the all 22 on. You cannot look at the box score with this guy, because first of all, from week 11 onward for Texas, he paced a 1,300-yard, 9-touchdown season. So even though you look at the box score, you're like, this guy never had 1,000 yards, and we're hyping him up. He had a 16-game season this year, and he didn't reach 1,000 yards. Like, you look at the numbers, and I won't lie to you, like, his prospect model grade is like not excellent, but the traits section, the film section is really solid, and his best comparable prospects are exactly a guy who you had to watch the film on last year, Ladd McConkey. That's exactly the type of player that you have with Matthew Golden. Every single route in the book, this guy will dice you twice on Sundays on. He is exceptionally good route runner.
Yeah. Now, again, I'm going to still have to watch Golden. I will say, so you had him slightly higher than Burden. I just personally was higher on Burden comparatively. Again, like just based on the grades. Based on the grades.
Why, first of all, Burden, if you put Burden's profile on Golden, he'd be competing with McMillan. Like, the film is really good, but the profile is not.
Yeah. No, I even see that for Luther Burden, it could be DJ Moore, or it could be Laviska Shenault, and that's like a pretty wide range of outcomes. So
that's my comps for Luther Burden, because I think he reminds me. His profile is eerily similar to Laviska Shenault's. Excellent sophomore year, really down junior season. We all blamed it on Colorado's offense. And
I was on the clock. Sorry, I was actually looking at some stuff on another tab.
You want to redo on that?
Yeah, Tyreek Hill is probably just too good of a value, anyways. I'll just put him in there.
Okay, here, let me change the player then.
Okay, yeah, it just autoed him, so I'll keep Tyreek there.
I tried to remove it, so here.
No, all good. No, I was just saying, like, Tyreek Hill at the 8.11, even if you're worried about him getting traded or retiring, is pretty crazy.
Yeah, no,
bro, just got the change. It's spicy. I'm live streaming, and I was also looking at our draft guide, so allow me.
Yeah, no, I'm actually pretty impressed that Matthew Golden came in as a wide receiver 3 upside prospect, barely, for what it's worth. Similar to guys like Ladd McConkey, Brandon Ayuk, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, Cooper Kupp, guys like that. Pretty impressive for his profile, basically lacking any semblance of market share related production. Like, he was hurt in 2023, so he didn't really have a whole lot of production his final year at Houston. Transfers to Texas, took him a couple of weeks. The easiest part of their schedule, Matthew Golden was a part-time player, and his ADOT was like 19 yards. He was just a field stretcher for the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. And then as the college football playoffs came along, go look at his game logs. He went like 7 for 162 and a touchdown against Georgia, and he absolutely mossed Malachi Starks along the sideline. Like,
he's just a weird profile to track.
It's a weird profile, but it is a lot like McConkey's last year, where you can piece it together, see why it was good in some regions, And then look at the best games, the most important games of the season. Arizona State, he fucking diced them in half. Georgia absolutely cooked them. Like, he has the high end traits of a elite route runner in the NFL. Like, watch every route that he runs. You're gonna be like, he literally toasted that guy every single time.
We haven't even done
his reception perception is gonna be absurd, by the way.
We haven't even done the Higgins evaluation yet, but I can tell you just based off the profile alone, he's probably going to grade really high.
Going to be interesting. He's going to be an interesting player. This class is a flat tier after like 107 all the way to like 208. I swear to God, it's going to end up looking like that. Early second round picks, go buy them right now. They're undervalued.
Side note, I do have to point out another guy that hasn't seen his ADP adjust based off the sleeper ADP. I understand he's got a weird profile, but you mean to tell me I got the 5th leading receiver in the NFL this year at 25 years old in the 9th round of a mock?
Judy.
Dude, he was like number 5 in receiving this year.
Yeah.
It's a little fugazi, don't get me wrong.
It's kind of
he's 25. He's 25 though.
Is Judy actually 25 years old?
25.
Amari Cooper?
Dude, he is. I mean, he's to be fair, he's going to turn 26. He's a year older than me. He's a 99, but still, like,
I'm going to take dude, I think I'm going to take Ollie Gordon here for what it's worth too.
Tyrone Tracy, fucking great value too. Jesus.
Yeah.
Dude, I had to fucking double take when Judy this year had 145 targets, 90 receptions, 1229 and 4 tugs. 145 targets.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
For reference, his previous career high was in 2020 at 113.
I'm pretty sure, like no exaggeration, Jerry Jeudy would be 10 spots higher in Dynasty wide receiver rankings if Steve Smith never roasted him on live television.
Probably, or if he wasn't on the Browns.
I honestly think that like the Steve Smith thing really toasted his reputation.
Dude. Yeah, by the way, Hayden quote tweeted the Josh Jacobs. It's so funny the way it was quoted. We need a receiver. A real wide receiver is one of the parts he put in that quote. A real wide receiver. Love Crazy. The guys we have, but we need a proven one.
I know. So anybody might be wondering why I've taken 4 straight rookies here. Here's why. The amount of players in Dynasty that are worth a late 2025 first is getting smaller and smaller by every prospect that I grade in this class, because I took Matthew Golden at the 8-7. I mean, Gordon is a little bit of a draft capital question mark, so maybe he doesn't go this high once we know when he got drafted or whatever. But like, dude, Matthew Golden's going to be like 109 to 112 in rookie classes, and I will guarantee you he'll be a top 30 receiver the second he's drafted.
Respectfully, even if they drafted one in round 3, I don't think they're as good as Tyrone Tracy showed this year. Personally, there's a really good
draft Travion Henderson in round 3, and they're not
really good backs in this class, dude. Dude, I don't think you're giving credit to how good Tracy was this year.
He was good. I would be worried if they drafted a 3rd round running back.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
He's a good player. He's a good player, but if they drafted Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round, I'd be fucking worried about Tracy's workload.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it depends who. I would say, like, if it's like a Scatabo or if it's
I'd
like
be worried if it was Scatabo too.
I like Scatabo, but Tyrone Tracy's better.
I don't know if that's 100% a certainty.
Did you watch him? Tracy this year?
Scatabo or Tracy?
Tracy this year.
Yeah, it's more pro Scatabo than anti Tracy. I don't know if he's better.
I love Scatabo. I literally fucking posted a picture on my Twitter of me with my shirt off, fucking grilling in the fucking camera because I mean, that's another thing too, dude. How many fucking fraternities are going to be rocking Scatabo NFL jerseys at fucking get-togethers and shit? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Late night parties, you're rocking that Scatabo jersey, bro. You're gonna be the life of the party, man. You sink a fucking pong shot in that Scatabo jersey. Oh baby, baby.
God. He's gonna be every like Southern State's favorite running back.
Dude, Scatabo and fucking Luka Doncic 77 Laker jerseys are gonna be fucking piled in sororities and fraternities across the globe.
Y'all letting the rookie RB6 fall hard. Is this a Dylan Sampson take?
Dylan Sampson for show.
Maybe DJ Giddens. I don't know. I like Sampson and Giddens. I think I can probably punt another round maybe and still get one of them. Yeah. I should die. I'm going to grab Keon Coleman here. I think he's just a good value.
I mean, if he has the backfield there, like, dude, he's fucking. I just think he's a really good player. To be
for what it's worth, Matthew, I don't think it's a horrible idea to shop him and see what you can get for him right now. Just given how many good running backs are in this class, I think it's very likely that 10 to 12 backfields get pretty disrupted, and the Giants could be one of them. But unless you're getting like a late one for Tracy, I'm probably just going to hold him.
Yeah, good point. I like Ayo Manor.
Yeah, makes sense there. Io Manor, I graded yesterday. He's really frustrating because Golden and him were kind of used the same way, where it's like you're a downfield receiver. We're not throwing you any layups whatsoever.
Dude, when he was lined up working that middle of the field using his yak, though,
he's a good player, man. He's a good player. What I called him last year when I watched him, and I actually have him in both of our Devy leagues, so I've paid quite close attention to how
I have him in one. No, I have him in both. I have him in both.
He reminds me of Michael Pittman, but with more speed.
Yeah. Also, Brody, I completely agree. That's why I snagged him.
True.
Dude, Samson is gonna feed.
Samson is your RB6, isn't he?
Yeah, he literally.
Yeah, no, he's my RB10, I think.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Corey's RB10 has nearly an identical grade as my RB6. That is how close that group is.
Yeah, between Devin Neal, DJ Giddens, Dylan Sampson, Ollie Gordon. There's one more guy that I'm forgetting. Scattaboo,
yeah.
And there's one more guy I think in that range as well.
Let me take a look. Is this somebody
they all just are going to be landing spot dependent. Where do they go in the draft? They're all good players. They all have merits. They're all different. Samson, my comp for him was like Devon Achane light. He's going to need to go to a situation like Devon Achane went to go higher in my rankings. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I got some CJ Spiller vibes from Dylan Sampson, to be honest. And it's funny because like once I first started getting into fantasy football, that was around the time when Spiller had that breakout year 2. You remember? Do you remember Spiller's year 2 in the NFL?
I do. And how on earth is Chris Godwin on the board?
Yeah, I took Godwin Jr. I just did that because I'm building a young team.
We're taking a 156-pound receiver over Chris Godwin.
Yeah, that's a little wild. No, the only reason, so I took Tyreek at the 8-11 just because I don't think he's going to be available in those drafts. But aside from that, I've just gone really young. So I just had rookie sorted there when I took Ayo Manor over Godwin. But regardless, if you need a productive receiver, Godwin's going to be a stud.
Yeah, dude. When last year,
did Jalen Coker go? Oh, yeah, he did. Yo.
Jalen Coker over Godwin is insanity. I'm sorry. Like, what are we doing?
By the way, if I had to give you an over-under of Dylan Sampson's 40, and I placed it at 4.32.5, are you taking the over or the under?
He's going to run faster than that.
I agree.
He's going to break the 4.2s probably.
So I had 4.32 on the player card just in case there's like technicalities with like obviously like it's an official time. Sometimes we kind of see that, but like you said, with like Devon Achane was your comp. CJ Spiller, I believe, was like a 4.3, 4.35 type of back as well. What got me with Samson, again, I don't want to spoil too much. What got me with him was just how refined he was as a pure instinctual runner for a guy that didn't have the experience.
Yeah. So you kept saying that to me, and I more so just saw a guy that was very decisive, which is a good quality to have when you're fast. I
thought like,
I didn't see like any refinement necessarily. I just thought he followed his blocks well, and when he saw a hole, he hit it.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, typically speaking, seeing a young, speedy 4.3, literally like 4.2, 4.3 back, you don't see them be as decisive. And I also wanted to point out, especially on their outside plays, I felt like he actually tempoed himself well. For a guy that has 4.3 speed, you would assume, okay, he's just going to run out there and try to make someone miss and gain the edge. Like, he was actually waiting for shit to develop. And once it developed, he put that foot in the ground and he was going upfield. Like, and that's the one thing I
he did a good job of tempoing his runs, which is pretty difficult to do when you're that fast. It's pretty instinctual to just try and run past everyone. Like Travion Henderson, for example, does a very poor job of tempoing his runs. He just tries to run past every single person that's near him.
Again, I do have Henderson higher, but if somebody said, hey, you know what, I actually slightly prefer Sampson to Henderson, like I would actually hear them out. Because again, that's RB5 and RB6 for me. I do, like I said, have about like a 3 or 4 point grade. So I do prefer Henderson, but like stylistically, they're similar backs. And I could see the NFL actually taking Sampson higher because of the injury history with Henderson.
Yeah, I don't think they'll take him higher than Henderson, but I
would bet on Henderson.
He went
mostly,
ahead of some of the other top end guys. Like if some team decided he was a better fit for their offense than Judkins, it wouldn't shock me.
Like, dude, get him to the Rams. Get him to the Rams. That's my thought process. Is if you had some type of combo of like a Rashad White, Bucky Irving dynamic in LA between Kyron Williams / Billy Corum once Kyron leaves, plus a Dylan Sampson. Like, I think they'd become so much more dynamic as a running offense, especially when you have Puka Nacua as your number one on the outside there.
Yeah, Sampson's going to the Jags now that you said that.
God. Oh God, no! Don't do it, Liam. Don't do it.
How big is the tier 2 for rookie running back?
7 guys.
So it depends what you define as tier 2, because
I would say tier 3.
Dempsey's in his own tier for me, which means the tier 2 is 4 running backs.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, that's what I was going to point out. So the way my grades have it going right now is Genty, obviously tier of his own right now. Then between RB2 and RB5, I have Omar at number 2 and I have Henderson at number 5. And there's, I believe, like a 3.5 point gap between them. And then between Henderson and Sampson, there's about a 3.5, 4 point gap between them. So that's kind of how it cyclically goes down for me. Again, I'm not going to say the official grades right now because that will be coming soon. But in terms of like just the gap between them per se, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I mean, given expected draft capital and whatnot, I agree that those guys are probably in like the second tier, but the way my grades actually have it is I have Judkins and Hampton like a slight tier ahead of where I have Henderson at 4 and Johnson at 5. And those guys are actually closer to Gordon at 6 than they are to Judkins.
I have Hampton. Johnson at 3.
Yeah, I know you have Johnson at 3. I'm just saying the way that my grades are, the tier that makes the top 50 to top 25 guys is actually Judkins and Hampton are slightly ahead of the other guys. But for the most part, it's probably those 4 dudes, just given the draft capital we're expecting for those guys and whatnot.
So the way I describe it, Arthur, to sum it up, is for us personally, we would view it number 1's in his own tier. 2 to 5 for me personally is a very close tier between them. For Corey, it's 2 and 3, and then 4 and 5. And then for both of us, number 6 to number 11 or so, dude. Like, I have Sampson at 6. I really like him. He is my number 6. But with that being said, like, once you get to 7, once you get to 8, once you get to 9, once you get to 10, there isn't much of a gap. Like, for example, I have Giddens as my 11, and there's about a 6-point discrepancy between him and Dylan Sampson. Where, like I said, that was similar to the discrepancy between Sampson and Henderson.
Yeah, across the board, 6 through 11, I'm a little bit higher on than you are. Yeah. Like I have Sampson at 11, and he's higher than your. Let me see here. He's higher. He would be your 8 based on the grade that I have on him.
Yeah.
But I don't have a huge difference between Ollie Gordon, who I have at 6, and Dylan Sampson, who I have at 11. It's like a 4-point difference. There's just like a million running backs in that range.
For me, it's more so we have them graded in similar ranges, except you have a couple more grading points attributed to each of those guys. So even though, for example,
I just think that tier of running back is just a little bit better across the board than you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, I will say Sampson and Scadaboo actually have the same grade for me. That's the one thing I forgot to mention. But
yeah, like in my mind,
completely different backs.
Samson, who's my 11, all the way up, they're all top 75 caliber players, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, I think they should all be early 3rd round picks. By
the way, Automy Ferguson, which I'm perfectly okay with. So we'll just go to the
They knew the vibes. They knew. We can quickly go over our teams here. I ended up going with Hurts in the first round. I pair it up with Purdy there. I wanted to grab a 3rd quarterback at one point, but there wasn't like a whole lot of value that I liked. Once Tua went off the board, I was hoping he would slide back to me in the 7th round. He didn't. Or in the 8th round, sorry, he didn't. I ended up going really wide receiver heavy. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Travis Hunter, Matthew Golden. Hear me out. If you guys followed our channel for a long time, what we always said was get your wide receivers, your quarterbacks, your tight ends early. And I don't think that's bad advice now. But when I'm building out a competitive roster specifically, dude, the value you can get on Godwin and Debo and Christian Kirk and Cooper Kupp and Amari Cooper, or whatever guys that you like that are later on in the draft, I don't hate the idea of like maybe foregoing hammering wide receivers in the mid rounds, knowing that you can get competitive guys like rounds 10 to 14, because I think the running back position, specifically once these rookies get into the NFL and we know their draft capital and whatnot, are going to be way more well represented rounds like 4 through 9 of a startup than they used to be. Like, how many running backs last year were we willing to take in rounds 4 through 9? It was like Kyron Williams, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne. There was like 6 guys maximum.
Yeah, no, for sure. By the way, got to point this out. Apparently, Chris Sims asked Malik Neighbors to rank the current LSU wide receivers. So obviously, he's going to put himself number one. Number one, him. Number two, Chase. Number three, Jefferson. Number four, BTJ. And then number five, like, is it just like a necessity that every LSU wide receiver still has to mention OBJ as a top 5 LSU wide receiver at this point in his career, even though he's clearly not?
I mean, if we're saying if OBJ was retired for 5 years right now, we wouldn't have had this opinion that he wasn't a top 5 LSU wide receiver, because he definitely was, and he was elite for 6 years.
The current LSU wide receivers in the league. Current.
Well, can you name a better one? Is Terrace Marshall better than him?
No. DJ Chark, no. I'm trying to think. We're missing an obvious LSU name.
I don't think we are.
Recently? No.
Surely
there's not only 4 relevant LSU wide receivers currently in the league.
I think there is.
No way.
Thaddeus Moss.
Do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
CEH.
I think that's it. The 4 stack that they got is elite. Kayshawn Booty, I guess, would be the 5th.
Jesus.
I think at this point in his career, Booty's better than OBJ.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair assumption to make, considering OBJ can't move anymore.
Yeah, peak OBJ is maybe 1 on the list.
Okay. Russell Gage.
Also bad. That guy stole a fucking bag from us.
Dude, I remember when you guys signed Russell Gage, everybody was like,
horrible signing. I hated that signing when it happened. I was like, that was the stupidest fucking signing of all time, especially when we had such a good depth wide receiver class incoming. It was the 2023 class incoming, and I was like, there's tons of like Jaden Reed types that you could have drafted late.
Yeah, dude, like, he played for you guys for 2 years. That's how irrelevant he was.
What a bum. What a bum of a signing, dude. He was so ass for us. He just toasted us every time we played the Falcons. That's why they signed him.
Can we talk about the fact that the guy had 2 700-yard years, and then Tampa's like, oh, God, we got to pay that guy.
3 years, 33 mil or whatever the fuck we paid him. Worst contract ever.
Dude, like, what was he even? Just like a part-time slot?
I mean, had he been like a decent slot receiver for us, like Jacoby Myers or, Demario Douglas.
Didn't he die on the field, or am I tripping? Like, didn't he get?
He did get absolutely wrecked on one play. Yeah.
Fuck. That's brutal. Oh shit, my team. My bad. Sorry, I just started yapping about irrelevant wide receivers. So we'll look at the team. Lamar Jackson, Caleb Williams, locking down the 2 quarterbacks. I was looking at Nico Collins if he had fallen. Obviously, Nico Collins, Drake London, both. I mean, even Drake May as well, for what it's worth. I mean, literally all those fucking 5 picks before me, I could have taken there. But like I said, Caleb Williams, I do believe with Ben Johnson coming in, he's going to adapt that offense around him. We've already heard reports that Ben Johnson accepted that deal because of Caleb Williams, and we've already heard from Ben Johnson himself he's willing to adapt the offense around him. So we go Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 302. We got a Marlon Hampton here at the 411. Could argue, okay, running back position, maybe you wanted to wait, especially knowing the context that JT went 6'12. But for me, that's just more so showing that if Marlon Hampton gets top 40 capital, he's my RB2 in this class, maybe lands with a team like the Raiders, going to get a full-time 3-down workload as soon as he steps in. Luther Burden is still my wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 technically when you're counting Travis Hunter. Let's just say Travis Hunter gets announced at cornerback in the next level, he would be my wide receiver.
He could probably play quarterback too better than anyone in this class.
Yeah, let's keep it real. Luther Burden for sure. Chase Brown, 6'11". Again, if I had known Jonathan Taylor was on the board, probably go there because of the contract assurance. However, with Chase Brown, if they don't add any real significant competition, I do think he can repeat as an RB1 in fantasy.
Quickly on Chase Brown.
Yep.
All 4 of the tier 2 running backs, are you taking Chase Brown over any of them?
In this class?
Yeah. Let's say all of Caleb Johnson, Henderson, Judkins, those guys go in the top 75 overall picks. Are you taking Chase Brown over all of them?
If Chase Brown does not get a significant piece added to his backfield, I think you can make the case that he's RB5 or RB6 in Dynasty.
Really? Okay. Let's say they add Damian Martinez in round 4.
I'm not worried.
And those other guys get top 75 draft capital. Would they be ahead of Chase Brown or behind him?
Got it. Okay. Well, I mean, in that case, you probably have to rank it also would depend on A, where they go, and B, when they go. Like if Caleb Johnson goes to the Vikings and there's no real added competition in the backfield, I think by process, you have to take a Caleb Johnson. Same thing, for example, if Martin Hampton goes to the Raiders and they're like, yeah, no, he's going to be our main bell cow running back, like how we use Josh Jacobs. Yeah, he's valued higher than Chase Brown. Like there's a lot of context, I think, that we still haven't seen from the NFL draft to really make a full certain announcement on that. But I will say, based off what Chase Brown did, based off the explosiveness he has, the receiving profile that he had, I mean, the guy was the RB1 in usage between weeks 9 and 17. Like he was unbelievable this year. Now, obviously, he is a 24-year-old running back. He doesn't have a lot of team assurance based off the draft capital really put in. He was, in fact, all he was really looked at is when Joe Mixon left. Okay, we got a cheap running back that can take touches that Joe Mixon left behind. The expectation wasn't really that he would develop into the running back that he has been, but we also have to acknowledge that with the opportunity that he had, he's developed himself into, I think at this point, assuming he keeps the job, I would argue a top 10 running back in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same case that you can make for Bucky Irving, only actually Chase Brown's workload is way better. And it's also the same case that you could have made for Kyren Williams 2 years ago.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly.
Where it's like, it's a day 3 guy who the team is going to ride with for a year or two, maybe 3 years if we're lucky.
With that being said, you go get Josh Allen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's a good combo though, for sure.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to ask you too, just based on their play style, some of the teams that could add running backs, let's do the matchmaker for the tier 2 running backs. What is the absolute best landing spot Amari and Hampton can go to?
I think the Raiders, like 37th overall, I believe it is. You put him in that situation, a team that's motivated to run the football. We've seen what Pete Carroll's done with running backs before. Obviously, again, it was weird when they selected Charbonnet, but outside of that, we have seen them really, we've seen Pete Carroll coach really top end running backs. And I do believe Amari Hampton, with the size, with the speed, like I said, 3-down ability. If he goes in a spot where he's uncontested for touches, he could be a 300 touch per year type of running back with the skill set to also break long plays.
Okay. Judkins, absolute best landing spot he can go to. I have 2 in mind that are just slam dunk.
It's funny because I don't want to use the Raiders again, but it would make sense considering they did just take Chip Kelly.
I actually don't want him to go there because I don't think Chip Kelly used him properly.
I was just saying that for the context. I think AJ says Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh would make sense if they wanted to add Judkins. That would make a ton of sense. For me personally, though, I really like Cleveland.
Cleveland's a good landing spot for Judkins. So the 2 that I wrote down that are the absolute nut spots for Judkins are the Chargers and the Vikings because those
are the obvious ones, though.
Yes,
I was trying to see schematically.
I think if we talk about all these guys like Hampton versus Judkins versus who's the best fit for what the Chargers want to do, to me it's Judkins out of all 4 of the guys. He would be the 101 pick in my mind that they would be thinking is the best option. Plus, Jim Harbaugh probably got a nice dose of him. Or actually, no, he was gone for the Ohio State Michigan games, but whatever. He was big in the college landscape, and Judkins was great at Ole Miss too.
Yeah, I would really like Caleb Johnson with Minnesota.
Caleb Johnson, Minnesota is the one that makes a lot of sense. I think Judkins on a wide zone scheme of any kind makes total sense to me. Browns, Chargers, Vikings, whatever, West Coast type of offense. And then what about Henderson? Henderson's a little bit more landing spot dependent than these other guys. I think actually the Raiders is the best landing spot for him because Chip used him really well.
Yeah. I just trying to think. Texans could make sense as well. I'm curious. Their new OC, Casey, I believe they brought in. Nick Casey, I think his name is. Am I correct? Nick Casey
is the Rams guy, right?
Yeah. Is that what his name was? Nick Casey.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember exactly what his name was.
Let me just make sure before I talk.
Denver would also be really good for Henderson too.
Nick Caley. My correction. Nick Caley. If he's running any of the Ram stuff over there, then I think that'd make a ton of sense for Henderson.
Yeah, Henderson on Denver running routes for Sean Payton would also make quite a bit of sense as well. If let's say Genty goes to Dallas or something like that. Who of the 4 guys, who fits Dallas the best? I think it's Judkins, personally.
I think Genty's the obvious one.
No. Assuming they don't take Genty. It's a second-round pick that they're spending.
Okay, so we're going from Clayton Adams. Caleb Johnson would make a ton of sense considering Clayton Adams, that blocking scheme that he ran in Arizona. We obviously saw James Conner have the best 2 years of his career there. So, I think Caleb Johnson would make a ton of sense if he fell to the second because he's a very cerebral running back. And we've seen Clayton Adams make do with a running back that maybe doesn't have that 4-3, 4-4 juice with James Conner.
Yeah. I whatever landing spot fits Caleb Johnson is going to fit Judkins too. They're the same type of back.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird because there's like a back for every flavor in this class. Is how I describe
I've heard that take like a million times, and it's like such an analog vanilla take that everyone has about.
But it's so true.
Class.
But it's so true, dude. Because like, dude, out of all the top running backs in this class, like, you got your gap scheme guy with fucking Hampton. Like, again, I am curious to see how he would fit with Clayton Adams, but also what I've heard from Clayton Adams is that the reason why he adapted that Arizona run scheme the way he did is based off like, he's very adaptable is basically what I'm trying to point out.
Right.
We've seen the work that he did improving that offensive line. So I'm very curious to see what type of back that he picks out for Dallas this year and how he actually uses that back. Because, I mean, no offense to James Conner, like, him getting the 2 best years of James Conner's career at the age that James Conner is shows me that this guy's fucking legit.
Yeah.
Clayton Adams.
I think any power back in this class that you guys take would be a huge beneficiary of what he did with Conner. Even if it's like Damian Martinez or whatever, you don't take it back until the 3rd or the 4th round. I think you could get by with one of those guys. I tend to think Dallas is going to spend up on running back. 1st or 2nd round picks going to be a back, but we'll see.
So he actually, so I'm looking at the Clayton Adams, like tenure across his career. So obviously offensive line coach 2023, 2024 with Arizona. He was at Indianapolis before. He was their assistant offensive line coach and tight ends coach. Obviously we saw between 2019, 2022, what they developed with their ground game there, working with Jonathan Taylor, 2020 to 2022 there. I mean, Brock's actually in the chat. Brock, if you have any insight on Clayton Adams when he was working with Indianapolis, feel free to leave it. We do have Colorado co-offense coordinator, offensive line coach back then. Like, he's been involved with coaching, run game, offensive line since 2005. And I mean, we're talking about a guy that's only 41 years old. So we're looking at what, a 20-year span there. So he's been realistically working on adapting his ground game since he was 21 years old, and he's 41 now for 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got experience there.
I mean, I tend to think that you guys are not going to throw as much as you did before.
I mean, we're throwing so much that I don't disagree.
And your defense was so hurt this year too, so that if you guys are healthier on the back end, plus you have a better ground game, you probably won't throw as much.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, we're at the 111 mark. I was going to say we could do a rookie draft to close this one out. I think we should probably just sign off here. We can run live rookie drafts at a different time now that the Sleeper UI has some of the rookies in. The other thing too is there's actually like not everyone that I was looking for in the Sleeper UI. There you go. Coach, one of the best Colts lines of my life. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. As I talked about at the beginning of this video, if you guys want to sign up over on flockfantasy.com, everything that we broke down from the rookie class will be in our draft guide, which will be live about 2 weeks from now over on the site. So make sure you tune into that. We're going to have, 30-ish prospects, graded, written up. What games do we watch? Strengths, weaknesses, comps, all that stuff for the Dynasty Wall Street Journal 101 version there. That'll be live on the site. Like I said, 2 weeks from now. Of course, if you sign up annually on the site right now, you can get a free team review from one of us, break down your Dynasty team, tell you moves to make, exactly where your team is at. Are you rebuilding, contending? Basically a Dynasty Decisions episode that we send to you. And then you also can get a tier 2 trade question, which is a buy, sell, hold report. So to redeem that, basically you have to go to the trade question hub when you're on the a la carte services on our site. Just hit personal advice, go to trade question, follow the prompts there, and then slide it until it says buy, sell, hold report on our name. And you can get your buy, sell, hold reports that way, where we break down basically 5 buys, 5 sells, 5 holds based on all the teams in your league. What does your team need? Maybe you need wide receivers. We'll break down some of the best buys, who has that player, the type of assets they might be into, really as in-depth of trade analysis as you can possibly get. Like, we're going to see, using our My Teams feature, who the guy that has Jordan Addison would need to his team to get you get a trade done. Like, that's totally different than us saying, go buy Jordan Addison. Well, if the guy who has Jordan Addison likes Jordan Addison, wants to keep Jordan Addison, needs the wide receivers, doesn't need picks or doesn't need running backs or whatever you have to offer him, that's totally different. So it's very, very personalized. And you can get that for free when you sign up for an annual. They're also available a la carte as well.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed that up. Again, the reason why it's so personalized is we have literal access to both your team, your assets, and the assets across the league that could be available, like Corey was saying. So it's not just like, oh, go get this contending running back because you're ready to compete. It's like, well, no, okay. You're ready to compete. You need a contending running back. What running back specifically will make sense? It's easy to say, yeah, generalization from a generalization standpoint, go get a competing running back. But you might say in your league, well, the top 6 teams in our league are not trading me a running back. The only demographic that I can work with now is the bottom 6 teams, and maybe only 2 of them have running backs of note that you can even potentially pry off their team.
Yeah, exactly. I just did one for Ethan yesterday where his team needed running backs because his wide receiver core was loaded. His tight end core was really good, had a bunch of good quarterbacks. And most of the buys that I sent him were like on some of the bottom feeder teams. One guy had Kyron Williams, one guy had James Cook, one guy had Breece Hall, one guy had, so on and so forth. So a lot of the buys that I ended up sending him were mainly from rebuilding teams, and a lot of the trade packages he was, saying he wanted to deal Jameson Williams. So I included Jameson Williams in there. In a couple of those trade packages included some draft picks. He had the 106 in his league. He had some, second round capital and whatnot. So very, very personalized. Definitely check that out if you guys are interested. Again, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this. On Friday, we'll probably have some kind of video. Not exactly sure what. Stay tuned for all the Pick'em TikToks and Pick'em shorts that we're going to have for the Super Bowl this week too. So yeah. Like, comment, subscribe. Like I said, I'm just going to keep saying it until you guys do it because there's probably like 10 likes on this video. But yeah, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.